We'll call this August 20th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting to order. Brandy would get us a roll call, please.
Yep. Culhane,
Present.
Hanson,
Here.
Brink,
Here.
Dargis Johnson, here. Spire,
Here.
Kays,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
and Dahlia and Oletsky are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brandy. Item number 3 is invitation for public comment participant submittal. If there is something that you want to talk about that does not appear on the agenda today, there will be time to discuss that at the end of today's Planning Commission meeting. Just let Brandy know or wave your arms wildly and we will get to you at the end of the agenda. Number 4 is approval of the agenda. Any changes, Brandy?
Nope. Other than I added, there's a Compesca Dunes. Now you got in your packet, if you don't have Compesca Dunes, we added that yesterday morning. So we met the 24-hour requirement. That's the last item if you guys don't have that on your agenda.
6E. Do you have a printout, Brandy?
Yep, it is 6E.
Would you please get me a printout? Or
Well, here it is up here. Everything else is the same.
okay.
And then we'll just have an item E.
Are we allowed, Matt, are we allowed to take voice votes on Plan Commission if there's quorum?
How many people are in the room?
There is 4 of us.
That's a quorum.
Yeah, so then you can take voice votes.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
Motion by Brink, second by Dargis Johnson. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 5 is approval of the minutes from August 6th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by Brink, second by Dargis Johnson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 6 is the regular agenda. 6A is commission consideration of resolution number 2020-38 adopting the boundaries of tax increment district number 14 within the city of Watertown, South Dakota.
Thank you, Liam. So this is the tax increment district number 14. It's a proposed mixed use of commercial and housing that will be created to pay the cost of public infrastructure. This area here, as you can see, is Stony Point. We recently approved the preliminary plan for connecting the street from Prairie Hills Avenue up to the point, which is lots 4 and 5 of Stony Point Second Edition. So basically this TIF will be used to construct the public infrastructure to allow for this, or to basically help with the funding of this, which will then in turn create tax dollars for the city and fund the street. WDC is here where they probably can describe that more eloquently. But the developer and managing partner, Bob Drake, along with Kenneth Berg, partner of Stony Point Investments, LLC, will construct the facility, which is expected to result in over $19 million in investment over a 2-year time frame. The development is estimated to produce an incremental valuation over $5.2 million over the 20-year life of the TIF district. So the project costs included in this plan relate directly to promoting economic development in the district that are consistent with the purpose for which the district was created. So I think with that, right now it's we have a couple different zoning districts. Not that that matters all too much, but we have the point right now is zone C2, and there is the conditional uses that were granted earlier this year for what they're wanting to construct. So everything as far as zoning and the Board of Adjustment conditional uses are all in line. And with that, I think I'll open it up for questions, or if you want to invite the WDC or the applicant.
I'm going to do that real quickly here. Before I invite the WDC, to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, I want to notify that the commission that my wife was hired by the WDC. She works there. I'm not entirely sure what it is that she does. I have conferred with the city attorney. We're both in agreement that there is no conflict of interest, there's no monetary involvement, there's nothing like that. But I did want to first notify the council, second, give them an opportunity to, if anybody has any issue with that, I will gladly step down. But to my understanding, I can make a fair appraisal, and the WDC is not the applicant, they are just the people that presented.
Yep.
And then Brent, I have no objection to that, Mr. Chair. Brandy, I had a quick question. So the first action that we are looking at solely is whether or not the boundaries are correct for this TIF district. Is that correct?
Yes, and they are accurate. But that is what.
Not the merits or the math or the plan itself that gets adopted by the city council. Is that correct?
Right.
Thank you.
Take it away, Mr. Schilling.
Chris Shilkin, Watertown Development Company. I think one thing to point out too is Tracy from our office has submitted this preliminary plan to the Department of Revenue, state of South Dakota, and it does have a classification as economic development, much like our last however many TIFs we've done. So there is no negative tax burden effect to the school district in the county. And also I'd like to point out, we've had a couple different TIF scenarios come through, and this one would be funded by the developer himself, either privately or through a financial institution. So a little bit different than some of the downtown ones we've been doing. Just want to make sure that's clear because it is a 40-some page document. And those are probably the only highlights I would point out as slightly different. And I'll take any questions or turn it over to anybody else.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
this is Case. Chris, when you say the developer is going to self-fund it, explain exactly, for just a layman, what does that mean?
Yeah, so a couple of our, thanks Todd, good question for clarification. A couple of our past TIFs, either the city or development company has funded these TIFs to promote in the downtown district only. And we've done some of our own for industrial parks, I guess, too. But in some of the past downtown ones, there's been a proposal to the city where they would use their money to fund the TIF, and then they would get the TIF revenue to pay off their loan that they gave to the developer. In this instance, Mr. Drake himself would get the TIF revenue back to reimburse him for development cost. If that was clear, Todd, or if you need any more explanation, please let me know.
Thank you.
I don't know if I officially opened the public hearing. Does anybody else from the board have any questions before I do so? Is Finance Officer Bobzian on today or not? I'm probably butchering that.
No,
But
that's
the only question I always have, and I think Todd usually asks it, is how are we on terms of our percentage allocation of TIF money or as a.
It's on a page here. We'll get to that. I think it's down further. It's usually towards the end where it shows.
I assume we're still a long ways off.
Oh, yeah.
But I like to know that that's in the record every time we do this.
Yep.
Right there.
So, yeah, here you can see where a TIF base value must be less than 10% of the overall taxable value. So, we are at, but total we're at 17 million, but we can go all the way up.
We're at 6.8 million available out of 17.2.
Okay. Yeah, there, okay, there we go.
So third of the way there, roughly.
Understood. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public to speak on behalf of or against TIF number 14? Resolution 2020-38. Anyone at all? Anyone out there in the interwebs? Please identify yourself.
Mike Lawrence. I work with Bob Drake. One thing about this TIF, it is self-funded. He plans on going through a financial institution to fund this TIF. The other thing is we've worked quite a bit extensively with utilities. This TIF makes everything go in at once. One of the things that this project has had through its lifetime is it's been in stages, and one thing gets done, and then the next thing gets done, and then it causes issue with the next thing. This gets all of the utilities in at one time. It gets the marina in. We have a contractor that's ready to go this fall, and hope to have that finished by this fall. So I've spoke with Bert at the utilities. We've went through a lot of different things, and this just makes it a lot easier for everybody to get it all done instead of really drawing it out in more stages and just kind of cleaning it up.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Anyone else on behalf of or against the resolution?
Bob Drake. One of the things I think that TIF money allows this project to do is to move forward quicker. So if you have the road, you have access to do more things. For example, we have a hotel looking at coming in. Well, if we have the road and we have all the infrastructure in for that, it draws that hotel. It'll draw hopefully an entertainment deal that the hotel wants to bring in or partner up with. We're hoping that's going to also, we're going to have the slips, and you'll have all of that stuff happen at a lot quicker pace. Otherwise, it extends it out for a number of years, and it just makes it a lot easier if we can do it up front, both from a utility standpoint, from a road standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, and it doesn't really cost the city. It's, so. Any questions from? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the resolution? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Does and entertain a motion?
Mr. Chair, this is Kay's motion to approve.
Motion by Kays. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brink. Further discussion?
Commissioner Case already pointed this out, but we're just designating the boundary, the actual meat and potatoes and everything. That's at council, correct?
I think we've had this discussion before, Matt, and I didn't bring my book today, but I think we have to approve the plan or something like that too. I understand that we're not the end all be all, but there's something more to it than that. But yeah,
I think somebody keeps coming in and messing with my statute books, because every time I look for it, it seems to change. But no, it does say you do designate the boundaries, or the final say on the designation of the boundaries, but you are a recommending body of the plan itself.
thank you. I couldn't remember the exact language.
That's correct, yeah.
Maybe I stole your statute book. It might be on my desk. Yeah, so when we talk about that, this isn't the end all be all of it, but we are recommending the plan and identifying the boundaries. This is essentially our job here. That's what we do. And then do some of the regular questions. These are a very important part of what we do as a plan commission, so I don't like them to just be silent when we approve them, because it's a pretty big deal. But seems like everyone's done their due diligence. We're still well within our range of our allowed or allotted amount by statute. I believe that percentage amount is a statutory control, basically, so the city, it just caps that amount that we can ever do for TIF dollars. So, any other discussion, comments, questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, this is Casey. Just to follow up on that, being that we are still below, we have very few tools in the economic toolbox, as Mr. Shilkin will probably tell you, to help incentivize development across the state of South Dakota and within the city of Watertown. And principally because this large TIF is also going to be self-funded, I think it's just, for me, it's a no-brainer.
Thank you, Commissioner Kays. Anyone else? Hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote. Brandy? Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes. 6B, annexation and zoning of a portion of property south of Highway 212 and east of 23rd Street. Resolution 2020-43 and Resolution 2020-44. Brandy?
Yep, thank you, Liam. So this is a petition for annexation and zoning of a parcel of property just west of Walmart. And I'll get over to that side of town here on the map. So the owner and developer, Bob Endress, is proposing to bring in the area of land that will be 10th Avenue Southeast. It'll make that connection from 26th Street to 23rd Street and Southeast. And then also he will be bringing in approximately, what do I have on here? 8.35 acres, and will be proposing to zone that C3 Highway Commercial District. I'll pull up the vicinity map here for a little better idea. So making that connection through 10th Avenue, and then this portion abutting the current city limits and zoning at C3.
Brandy, why are we missing that chunk? The STR 41652. Is that coming, or what's the?
Well, right now I think he's trying to phase it, and I don't want to speak for the developer either, but his farm exists there, so I think phasing it out
Okay.
and taking it in little by little. He does have somebody that is wanting to develop this parcel that he's bringing in right now, so I believe that's what prompted bringing this forward, and then also making this connection, which is shown in the major street plan as being warranted.
What are the plans for the improvements on 10th Avenue? Usually when we bring in a city or a street into the city, we require it to be brought up to city standards, and I believe this is a gravel street now.
Yep, they have submitted, the preliminary plan will be coming to you guys for what they envision for this entire area eventually. And then also, but this is consistent with what the comprehensive land use plan shows. And then they've submitted construction plans and have actually begun installation of, they will be bringing this up to city standards. And
Will that also include sidewalks, Brandy?
Yeah, it should. We'll make sure that that's on the construction plans.
I just remember that was a bone of contention several years ago when the original discussions were going on with previous staff. And so that's one reason I'm bringing it up.
And Colin DeYoung is the project manager, and he confirmed there is sidewalks. He's coming up to the mic.
We are proposing sidewalks, 66-foot right-of-way. It's Colin DeYoung. And the street is proposed to be in compliance with engineering design standards for commercial development. So,
Given that these two motions are inextricably linked, or resolutions, excuse me, I'm going to have one public hearing on both of them, and I will open that now. Is there anyone to speak on behalf of 2020-43 or 44? Anyone from the public that wants to speak on behalf of it? Or against it? Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeYoung?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Case?
realizing that this is just one piece of the property, and I know that it was commented that we will be having a preliminary plan and subsequent plat coming in. Will there be a concept plan associated with the remaining acres, Brandy?
Yep. That'll be part of they're preliminary planning all of that area.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against the resolutions 2020, 43, and 44? Anybody out there in the interwebs? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the board? And I apologize, we have to ask you every single time, Matt, do we take these as one or two separate motions? I'm getting two from Brandy.
Randy is correct.
All right, I'd entertain a motion on the annexation, resolution 2020-43. Does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the annexation.
Second.
Motion by Hanson, second by Dargis Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes. Moving on to resolution 2020-44, the zoning of the same parcel. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass.
Ford seconds.
Motion by Dargis Johnson, second by Ford. Any further discussion on the zoning? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Brandy?
Cohen,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Kays,
You still with us, Todd?
Sorry, yes.
7-0, motion passes.
and Ford.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
That was
There you go.
presumptuous of me. 7-0, motion passes. Moving on to 6C, Commission consideration of resolution number 2020-40, amending the zoning map of City of Watertown, South Dakota for a portion of Country Club Estates addition from the R1 Single Family Residential District and PUD Planned Unit Development to CL Lake Commercial District and R1 Single Family Residential. Brandy?
Yes, thank you, Liam. So the owners of the property, Vince Foley and Charlie Mack, the acting agent for Prairie Winds Golf LLC, have petitioned to rezone the property. As Liam had disclosed there, that right now, and I'll pull it up on the map so you can see it a little easier. Right now, the properties are zoned R1 Single Family Residential District and PUD Planned Unit Development. And what they're proposing is some of this area will be from the PUD. It'll be brought back to the R1 Single Family District, and then also rezoned to the CL Lake Commercial District. And then some of the R1 area will be rezoned to the CL Lake Commercial District. The PUD is going away altogether. So then in this area, there will only be R1 and CL zoning designations. And then actually on this map that I provided, so that pink, that will be what will be zoned CL. And then this pink with the yellow hatch is what will be brought back to R1. And so then that will all remain as the golf course. And then this will be developed, I believe, as storage units. But also it'll just be zoned as CL. So really any of the permitted uses or conditional uses could apply.
Brandy, quick question on the PUD. When the that property was zoned PUD years ago, what was the intended use of the property?
Good question. I just figured since it was going away that I did not look into that. I don't know if. Vince, do you know? Okay. I'm going to do a little research there. If anybody has any other questions too,
I think we've got some institutional knowledge that may perhaps testify about that later too. Maybe not. Oh, I thought I heard you say something, Vince.
He didn't know.
Oh.
It was like, oh, yay, who?
Any other questions from the board before we open the public hearing? With that, I'll open the public hearing on resolution number 2020-40. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of or against the resolution?
Vince Foley, speaking on behalf. The concept when Brandy was moving her mouse around, it's circling. She went from all the way from the left to the right. But the concept, just so everyone's clear, for the storage units is just on the easterly end past those those 3 R1 lots that were left.
Would you bring the map back up here shortly, Brandy?
Yeah. So, actually, I'll pull it up on. So the storage units will be in
Yes.
this area. This.
Storage shops. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Storage shops.
Okay. Yep. And then this will be left as open space and would meet any detention requirements if it was necessary.
That's part of where we're using for the 50% rule.
So access is going to come off of 54th Street for these?
Is that the section line? Yes.
Yeah, okay. And also for the 3 residential lots, then they'll all, that road goes around in a circle, is that, or back down and around?
Okay, the 3 residential lots, that is a separate lot right now. And so the platting is to incorporate it all into one single R1 lot.
Well, what about that little sliver to the north?
That's part of it, yes. That becomes part of that R1 lot.
Yes, that will provide the access because right now, so when the replat comes forth, this right-of-way will be vacated. So then to provide access for these, then, and however he chooses to subdivide them, that at least they'll have access still then to South Lake Drive instead of Lisa Avenue or
Carroll.
Carroll.
Yeah,
Lisa's down here. It's not shown. So yeah, their access point would be on 54th Street to South Lake Drive.
So the road will only go up to the 5 lots therefore?
Yeah,
5,
yes.
5 for storage?
And then south.
Yep, we're
Oh, it'll still keep going south, or?
to their
South, and down into the area south of Carroll Avenue.
well, and even though, so basically to the extent of where your farthest south driveway will be, right? Of where the pavement would actually be for access. So if it came from South Lake Drive, and then if your units will actually be like right in here.
Well, you're there and further to the west.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they would just provide the access would go to the farthest extent of their driveway. It wouldn't, because then it's the golf course farther to the south.
Are we answering your question? Okay.
How are you getting to the lots? That's all I'm asking.
Okay,
So,
all right. See on 54th, you've got that corner right there, that lot there. You go to the south of that lot, and that's where the driveway access will start.
This will now be all one lot.
oh, so the driveway will be on the north side, not the south side of the lots, like it's drawn now? Am I still mixed up?
You're gonna replat it such that the road abuts the R1 stuff? Is that what you're saying, on the north end of the property?
Yeah, so this right-of-way will go away.
It's not going to abut, I mean, it's got to have the setbacks and everything to be able to access.
Do you care if I pull up the concept?
No.
Okay. That might give you guys a
This
better-
is a preliminary concept, not even a preliminary plan.
Right. So it does, yeah, it doesn't, and really what's happening on the property too shouldn't affect really the rezone itself. Let's see here. So you can see so 54th Street is up here. It intersects on South Lake Drive. And then where they're showing the accesses, the pavement will be extended to the access points.
One, and this is an earlier iteration, just so we're clear, the change that's been made is the far west building, you see there's in effect dual bays. That's split and the westerly bay is moved, and so that the doors face in instead of out, and so that then there would be the residential siding requirement on the backside, so the doors would be obscured.
And how tall are these golf course units, or, oh, okay.
No, they'll be, well, right now, I mean, it's a preliminary now. I shouldn't say it's not going to be golf cart sheds, but we don't think so. What we're contemplating is things for toys, campers, RVs, type of.
Rented out though, then not sold.
Probably
right?
condo. No, it'll probably be condoed.
Oh, okay.
This makes more
Mr.
sense
Chair-
from a
Mr.
liability
Chair?
standpoint.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Case.
I think, I'm just gonna caution, I think we're getting into the weeds of what a subsequent request may or may not be, as opposed to the intent of the request as to whether or not we just think this is an appropriate place for CL and R1 zoning. The request, we understand what possibly could go there, but there's nothing beholding Mr. Foley to do what he's intending to do. So it's just the question is this an appropriate place for CL? And I think, again, it's your board, but I think that's what the comments and the discussion should be directed.
Thank you, Mr. Kays, and I appreciate that comment. My only concern is that occasionally we get by increment much farther than we would go normally in one jump. So I do like to have a little bit of a look forward, and I think Mr. Foley has provided us with that. But keeping in mind Mr. Kays' comments, I would return us to the question at hand, which is one of zoning.
Also, I did look into the PUD resolution, and I mean, all it stated on there, it didn't say what the use would be. That would be something that I could go back and listen in minutes or in the meeting. But it was done in 1984. So
I hadn't started law school but a month by then.
I guess my point, the only reason I was asking you to look, I didn't know if there was something specific to that PUD that talked about storage or golf related activities or something along those lines. That was my question, and you answered for me.
okay. Yeah, so maybe it was at that point, but then now it's just the question of, is it today?
Wonderful. We've heard from Mr. Foley. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the resolution? Please identify yourself in the microphone.
Hi, my name is Jim Dugan. I'm a landowner and adjacent to this property. First of all, I make a living talking to people. I'm all nervous talking to you guys. I'm not quite sure why, so bear with me, okay? First of all, my wife Jane is with me, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to give you an opinion or to share some concerns that we have if, in fact, this does get passed. There are alternatives, and I've got 3 bullet points to hit on, and I've got a 4th one, which would be an alternative to this plan for Prairie Winds Golf Course, and probably wouldn't have anything to do with Vince, but it would certainly solve the problem for the golf course. Anyway, selfishly, we don't want to look at storage units. I own the property adjacent to that 40-foot. I own 646 South Lake Drive. I also own 643 South Lake Drive, which is the across the street property. That's it right there. That's my garage. Okay, 7 years ago we built that garage, and it was all R1, and we had to meet a whole bunch of different things, and we were able to get a building permit under a bunch of qualifications. We had to bring in sewer and water. We had to have 450 square feet of living space inside. It literally had to be a house, and that's basically what it is. I also had to bring in 4.5 feet of fill to get above FEMA's requirements for flooding. Now, and I've got this may or may not mean anything to you whatsoever, but I've got 3 swipe pictures in my iPad that you can take a look at. This is the,
We could even get the screen up, Tyler. You know, and then here, Jim, we can just, then we'll set it right here.
you're gonna have to help me with this, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, just set it, usually you can see that.
You wanna look at my granddaughter? Get the right picture here, huh? Okay. There it is.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful. Aren't you clever? Anyway, so my 4.5 feet rise, and on the westerly edge of my property, I had to put that retaining wall to hold the earth back. And there's, as you can see, a pretty dramatic slope on the south edge of my property heading towards what I refer to as a slough. Now, we can't even properly mow that all the way back because we run into water with the water table being as high as it is right now. So I've got a concern there. Again, selfishly, we just don't want to look at it. Those trees would be in the, I suspect, according to the plan that Vince was just showing us a minute ago, that would be the northwesterly corner of the storage facilities, okay? Now,
So on an aerial, this is where those trees are from this photo.
there you go, yep. That's me at 643, okay? Now, the westerly side of 643 is a 40-foot piece of property that Vince was talking about, that would be attached to his 3 R1 lots that we talked about. Okay, so we had to bring in a ton of fill just so I could get my garage built. This property is a lot bigger than that, and there's a ton of fill that's gonna have to come in there. And I believe that FEMA's even raised it higher than it was from 7 years ago, as far as whatever is the floodplain. Now, there is conversation about a retention pond by the number 11 hole at Prairie Winds Golf in order to hold water. Now, if you're gonna dig a retention pond and move that fill or dirt, whatever it is, up into this area where they're gonna build these storage units, it seems to me that water's gotta go somewhere. And I think that's what's gonna be created is a push. And as you can see from my little picture of my house, I think that water's gonna start coming towards our properties. Everybody along South Lake Drive, on the south side of South Lake Drive. That's got an obvious concern. And, quite frankly, I don't understand the hydrology behind it, but it seems to me that if you're digging a hole where there's already water standing there, you're not gonna get water to run to that hole. And I could be all wrong. There's a lot smarter guys than I am in that situation. So anyway, we're very concerned about the fill. We're very concerned about the view. And we also think that it's going to probably lower the value of our property because we got a bunch of storage units behind my house. And I'm not interested in that. If this is approved by you people, please don't allow access to the R1 area, which at one time was 3 lots, now it's 1 big lot. There's conversation about 3 twin homes to come down a 40-foot wide trail or driveway because it can't be a road, it's only 40 feet. So at the end of that would have to be a cul-de-sac for a turnaround. And cul-de-sacs have problems with fire departments, they have problems with utilities, they have problems with gas or with garbage being picked up, they have problems with mail being delivered. You guys know as well as I do, or call it better than what I can do. Okay, so my final point is, as Prairie Winds is trying to deal with their debt and sell these properties, they have 11.1 acres in the middle of their golf course that would not require fill. All it would require, and it would not require rezoning. They've already got 2 tin buildings there. So my point to that would be is this isn't a necessary deal. And it's going to create all kinds of problems with flooding. It's going to create problems with the lake. That's all I got. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the rezoning motion? Mr. Johnson, please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Brad Johnson. Brandy, could I ask you to put the 100-year flood overlay on that? I'm here as a Lake Compesca resident. I'm a member of the Lake Compesca Water Project District. I am not speaking on behalf of the Lake District because we have not discussed this, but I am speaking as someone who has been actively engaged in the city's flood efforts for the last nearly 30 years. Either I'm not very good at it or we're not getting very far, but developing this particular piece of land to begin with is a bad idea from a flood standpoint. It is entirely in the 100-year flood zone. It is inconsistent with the city's past efforts, the messaging that we've been trying to do. I served on the city council for 8 years. While I was on the city council, we purchased 2 pieces of property. One is about approximately 100 acres east of City Park and on the south side of Highway 20 by the airport. That had a development proposed on it similar to this with residential property. The city purchased that with the explicit intent to prevent fill development. The other property that the city purchased was the 3rd Avenue Ponds, where all the kids like to fish now. That also had a development proposed on it that would have required a lot of fill. And in both instances, the city determined that we should not be encouraging or enhancing any development effort that required significant fill. I do understand the hydrology quite well. I've studied Lake Compesca intensively. This particular area is all sandy soils underneath of it. Basically, the way Lake Compesca works is water comes in the Big Sioux River, but it also comes up from below. We have a huge groundwater aquifer. Water rises and lowers with the elevation of the lake. Back after the 1997 flood and the 2001 flood, I believe you had pumps with pipes, with portable hoses going across South Lake Drive, pumping water from this general area back into the lake so that the golf course could improve it. What you're talking about is putting in storage units. We all know that storage units are a destination type of thing. We've got them all over town, and I think we've probably got about 5 contractor shop type buildings going up right now. So it's not like this is critical to it. So the primary reason I'm here is to say this is bad messaging, really bad messaging to any landowner north of Watertown who is watching the city. You know, we talk about building a dam and flooding 6,000 acres of land north of town. And at the same time, we're going to come in and we're going to fill in the natural floodplain of Lake Compesca right on the shore. I don't think that's good messaging. And it's not good environmental policy. And I would also say that this is not consistent with the newly passed Lake Compesca master plan. You can look at that and you'll see that this is not the type of thing that was allowed. So I don't think it's good for the lake. I don't think it's good for flood control. It's going to cause more headaches than we wish, and that's pretty much what I've got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf of or against? I will allow a little bit of time for Mr. Foley to come up and respond to those comments at the end. But is there anybody unique who has not spoken yet that would like to speak? Anybody out there in the great digital world? Mr. Foley, do you have any responsive comments?
Just a couple points. All their points are well taken, and I certainly understand where they're coming from. But I do want to rebut one thing that Jim made comment about twin homes, that type of stuff. My comments to Jim were just what could be done in the future. I don't know. Patty and I agreed to keep that area R1 and would only go on development with Jim and Jane's assent. So when there's conversation about twin homes, it's just what if in the future? We've got no plan for twin homes.
And because it is zoned R1, they only could do single family, and then they would have to get a conditional use if they wanted to do anything else.
We have to either come back for replat to make that into multiple R1s, or we have to come back to have it rezoned or a conditional use. So we're not asking for anything along those lines. That's the only point. The other points made are well taken.
Anyone from the board that has any questions for any of the witnesses or the public that spoke?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Case.
this is case that could either go to the city attorney or Mr. Foley could also address it. Being that this property is in the city of Watertown, it has been platted, it has been zoned. There is nothing precluding Mr. Foley from developing those R1 lots into single-family housing or other subsequent types of residential housing per the ordinance. And the PUD being silent on use, there's nothing precluding him if he wanted to come in and do something that would be in line with whatever that PUD would allow for. So I'm saying that there are, Mr. Foley has the option to use the zoning and develop it in some manner, maybe not consistent with what his proposal is, but if I think there's been some question or testimony of whether or not he couldn't do anything. He still has the options to do things. Am I misreading that? From a legal standpoint, you still have a vested right. I guess maybe you have a vested right to develop that property because it has been zoned, it has been annexed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Are you waiting for Matt?
And this is Vince. I'm sorry, this is Vince. I agree with what Todd says.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, subject to any other limitations that might arise. If the property is, there's flood control things that need to be taken care of or that sort of thing. But yes, generally I agree.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to touch on some points too, just as far as the floodplain goes. Being that it is within the 100-year floodplain, we actually, and these lots are platted. So no matter what, even if they were built on with single-family homes, there would have to be fill brought in to meet our floodplain regulations. So at one point, it was determined that they were okay to be developed. And then also, you can see with all of the houses along South Lake Drive are within the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain. It's not within a floodway. Floodways you can't develop in, or a jurisdictional wetland, which this is not. And the Corps is working on this as well to make sure that everything that they're proposing is good to go.
Well, remind me, that plat was 1984.
Mm-hmm.
We've made a lot of progress since 1984, haven't we? I mean, in terms of our thought process and how that's my devil's advocate position on that, is that I wasn't even alive in 1984. Yeah, I know you were just starting law school. I wasn't even a twinkle in anybody's eye.
Well, Liam, that was the point I was trying to get at the very beginning. If this was a virgin proposal, knowing what we know, I think we maybe would need to be a little bit more cautious, but I think the city has bestowed some development rights on this property, albeit it was 2 years after I graduated from high school. We're dating people. it seems to me that, you know, something's going to happen on this property. The city has blessed something to happen on that property in the time that since 1984. Maybe what was intended is not what's being proposed today, but I think we have to at least agree amongst ourselves that this property can be developed in some fashion.
Brandy, what are the permitted, do Mr. Foley's plans fall within permitted uses of the CL district? This is effectively the last time we see this, right?
Yes.
Of course, unless there's a replatting, right? 'Cause-
Actually, yeah, I'm
can
sorry.
Or can it be administratively replatted?
You will be seeing it again because we'll have to we'll vacate these right-of-ways per the replat as well. So a replat will come forward, and then that will also include any development agreement that has public infrastructure improvements, which most likely in this case will just be the paving of 54th Street up to the access points.
Quick question, Brandy, Kays again. If there was our commercial storage buildings, are those a permitted use in the CL or are they conditional use? I can't remember.
They are permitted. Storage shops are permitted, and then storage units are conditional uses.
And then they, are there, I can't remember again too, do we have buffer requirements for some of those types of uses, or only, it's just the open space requirement?
Yep, so we have that open space requirement of 50% of the lot area or the lot coverage. That is going to council actually to be changed from what we had previously was impervious areas. And then we do still have other design standards where any exterior walls that are facing a residentially zoned district do have to follow the materials of residential structures. So they have to look like houses.
Are there any requirements for tree plantings or fencing? I couldn't remember that either.
Okay, for outside, for screening, storage of excess inventory shall be screened by means of an opaque fence, plant material, wall, or earth berms. And where groupings of conifers and deciduous shade trees are utilized for screening, in order to provide for year-round screening, a minimum of 50% of the trees shall be coniferous. So, nothing, landscape and screening devices, including fences, are allowed to be placed within the transitional yard. And then the transitional yard is the 15-foot of grass area that has to remain. So, if people have parking lots in any other district, you can go up to 5 foot of the property line. And in the CL district, we increased that to 15 feet just to provide more of a setback.
Okay, thank you.
Brandy, so for my clarification, storage shops aren't approved, storage units are a conditional use. So storage shop, the definition I have is a building, I'm sorry, I lost it, building for personal use. Oh, bear with me. Can you bring that up? Because I've just kicked that down the road here.
So it's a building for personal use only as a storage facility. Each structure is allowed to have water and sewer utilities. Commercial uses and living quarters are prohibited. So
is that to meaning that, I guess, is a definition of a storage shop, I mean, are we going to have a row of
garages, basically.
Gotcha.
Before we have any further comment, I believe the public hearing is still open. Is there anybody else that has anything to say on this matter from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any other comments from the board?
Other than with the recent adoption of the CL district, Brandy, this area falls within the areas that could be rezoned CL, is that correct?
Yep, it does.
And this may be getting way ahead of ourselves, but in the event that the buildings are, you know, we grant this and things move forward, as he brings his fill in, so if Mr. Dugan's and other people's lots, you know, slope down, as he said, he cannot push water onto the neighbor, correct?
Right.
So how would, is that, I mean, I know we're getting way out there, but I'm just trying to address that is an issue that they won't have to be concerned about. They cannot push their water onto someone else.
Right, that's correct. And that's a fine point to bring up, that when they would submit their commercial site plan application for their building permit, we would look at their grading plan and make sure that they were accommodating for any drainage that they were increasing or contributing to, and then also that they would improve the drainage in that area overall. And also, storage units are non-residential, so they don't have to bring in as much fill as they would have to if it were a home, a residential structure. They can wet flood-proof storage units so that they could build them at the grade there is today. So it's less fill than what would be required for a house, but if they want to bring in the fill too, they can. But there's just more options that way. All things that we would look at the time of their application.
And again, a storage units are conditional where a storage shop, and I guess what I'm looking at is it says you can have water and sewer utilities in a storage shop. So same thing, they're going to require fill so they don't have lake infiltration if there's a flood.
Potentially, or they would just wet flood proof up to the foot above the base flood elevation, and then have any utilities that they had would also have to be above that freeboard elevation. But so they can have like vents where a house, you have to elevate it. But if you have a crawl space, you still have to have vents. There's just a lot of different factors, but that is an option for the storage shops, being that they are considered non-residential.
So what you're saying, like a floor drain in the shop would have to be above flood level. Otherwise, if that area were to flood, the floor drain would just take it all in. Is that what you're saying?
And that would be fine. The main thing about the vents would be for the hydrostatic pressure. So if the flood event happened to the 100-year event to that elevation, that it would be pushing up against the walls, so it would be able to equalize the pressure with the vents. So the vents are, like down by the foundation, and then so the water would equalize hydrostatic pressure.
Brandy, the question at hand, though, is in relation to the utilities connected to our public sanitary sewer system. Does FEMA and the floodplain regulations require elevation of those floor drains a certain elevation in relation to the 100-year floodplain elevation?
They don't say that, as long as they are like flood proofed, that there's like a ball joint or whatever, but they can still be below.
Okay. And we have had to administer certain regulations and rules along those lines on other structures around the lake, I know. And that's something that we would coordinate, again, when we get to that phase with the site plan review. Those are the things that we would contemplate and coordinate with the wastewater division of Public Works and ensure that that public infrastructure is protected appropriately.
Right, like I said, probably getting ahead of ourselves, but.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ford.
Yes, Diana.
I'm happy that Mr. Kays brought up the point that this property is already annexed into the city and can be developed no matter in one way or another. I just believe there's a finite amount of land around our lake. We're trying to provide as much accessibility for people to enjoy the lake as possible. I don't believe this is an appropriate location for these kinds of shops. I think the way it's currently zoned, R1 residential and PUD, if it continues to stay that way, is the appropriate zoning for this particular piece of property.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. I would entertain a motion on Resolution 2020-40, and I will give an opportunity for more discussion after, if there is a motion in a second.
Mr. Chair, I think the appropriate motion to move the item forward is to motion to approve with such discussion.
I would entertain a motion to approve with further discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Kays,
I'll second.
second by Brink. Is there further discussion?
This is Kays. I think this is, it's a very tough one. I think, we are somewhat predisposed to accept development out here. I think the land use plan that's been adopted does show this as an area for development. And also we have taken the opportunity to identify areas within a certain boundary of the lake to be eligible for CL zoning. And while this might not be a perfect fit for everything, I think it meets those minimum tests basically laid out in previous policy.
I guess it sort of strikes me as, do we want a residential swamp or do we want a commercial swamp?
Brandy, with the rezone going through a few, like through the middle of lots, I'm looking at the current lot layout. Is there something that absolutely requires that it gets replatted, or if this rezone passes, could they just not replat it and then there's still all these platted lots that are how they currently are?
Before they would get a building permit, they would need to replat.
Like even on some of the lots that aren't, I mean.
So if it, finish. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Because there are some lots that are completely platted that will be within a zone, like that corner one off of 52nd Street, the north, lot 14 down there. I mean, in theory, once it's rezoned, could something be built there?
So, but no matter what, if it was rezoned and there was split zoning on a lot, is that what you're getting at? They would have to be. So if they'd come in with their building plans, a requirement of that would be that they would finalize a replat.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just probably didn't phrase that very well, but I just wanted to clarify that a replat will be required so that, like shown on the screen, lot 33 won't be a split zoned lot. So thank you.
Right. Yep.
Oh, somebody wanted them. Uh-oh.
Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Brandy?
Let's go. Ford.
No.
Kays.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Durgis Johnson.
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Culhane.
No.
Motion passes 5-2.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6D. Commission consideration resolution number 2020-45, amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota for a portion of property located at 700 14th Avenue Southeast from I-1 Light Industrial District to C3 Highway Commercial District. Brandy.
Perfect. Thank you, Liam. So this, Joel Stimson is the owner of this property, which is along 14th Avenue Southeast. And again, I'll zoom over there. Oh, I didn't bookmark that one. So currently the property is zoned I-1 Light Industrial, and he is proposing to, or petitioning to rezone it to C3 Highway Commercial District. The reason for that is that he would like to develop a campground for this area for, I mean, if you get out-of-town workers, whatnot. More so would be for the workforce campground, I believe. And proximity-wise, close to Highway 81, it is this property right here. This property is also within the floodplain, making it, and there is a drainage way going through the middle of it. So developing it is challenging, where campgrounds are temporary and would be some way to develop it. It is surrounding the zoning districts are also, they're all I-1, and then there is some C3 up to the northwest, or the northeast, I'm sorry. But in the comp plan, it does show that for redevelopment in these areas, that it would be a mixed use of highway commercial and light industrial. So with that, I will open up for questions.
Brandy, this is Todd. Does the city have a previous practice of spot zoning, a different zone in the middle of a more heavy intensive use zone?
We like to avoid it, but it does meet the minimum lot requirements for the C3 district. There are other zoning designations that we do have a larger minimum. So, like, if you want to rezone to a PUD, you have to have, or an RG, you have to have at least 1 acre. If you want to do CL, you have to have 3 acres. But there are things like that where you have to have a larger requirement, but there's nothing really specifying what a spot zone is.
Is that like a car storage lot, or what is that?
There's campers out there already, isn't there, when you drive by? I mean, we're talking like where the old roller rink is, or where are we? I'm trying I can't even.
Who's at the truck stop?
Todd, are you on a highway somewhere?
Or like at the races or something. Okay, the applicant is here. If you guys want, if you have questions for him, I think he can answer a lot of these. Proximity-wise, Liam, though, we are about across from the theater, so the roundabout is just to the south.
Understood. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak on behalf of or against the resolution? Would you unmute Todd too? Or what, did you mute that person?
He can mute, he can unmute himself too.
Okay. As long as we're in front.
He needs to slow down first.
So what did we say was in the lot next to that? Sorry.
The lot next to that is, this is Joel Stimson. The lot, it's all one lot currently. And what I'm hoping to do is rezone the portion that we're here for today. I'd like to build some type of a small RV park back there, because as Brandy stated, there's not a lot I can do on that land. And then next year, I would actually rezone the fenced-in portion, clean that all up, and then put in approximately another 20 to 25 spots. Nothing, just junk cars waiting to get crushed.
Would the applicant be reluctant to just rezone it all at once?
I would be okay with that, but I would need some time to get those cars hauled out.
Yeah, with the caveat that you would have to have that stuff taken care of in a year.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, was the 12 to 18 months getting it out of there. I'm kind of hoping something happens with steel prices before then.
An automobile parking lot is a permitted use in the C3 district. We probably, this is more in the I-1, so.
Yeah, that's not exactly a parking lot.
That's not a parking lot.
How do you get access to that?
From 14th Avenue.
Is that turned to gravel?
Yes.
And I've already talked with him that most likely there would be the requirement or there would be the requirement to pave that to the access points. And it does have curb and gutter currently.
It has curb and gutter to the property line. It does not have any curb and gutter going east. What I would, long-term plan is I'd like to finish that road and the whole lot on the north side of 14th Avenue at some point have approximately 40 to 45 long-term RV spots there. There'd be no weekend stuff, nothing like that. The minimum would be a week. It would aim towards construction workers, snowbirds, stuff like that. It would be weekly, monthly, 6 month. And it would be like an April 1st to November 1st type thing, or however it works out.
Gravel pathway through with septic and
It would be
power?
full hookups, sewer, water, power. The pads would be gravel. The pathway going into them would be crushed asphalt, which is what my current lot across the road is. And the road as I put that together.
And we do have limitations for, or actual design standards for campgrounds. So if he were if this was rezoned and he was going to utilize the property as this, he would need a conditional use for a campground as well. So it would come back to the Board of Adjustment to get that conditional use. This is the first step. So that's where conditions could be looked at. He would have a site plan then at that time. And then we would make sure that he was meeting any of the ordinance requirements for campgrounds as well. And if he wasn't able to, then he would be asking you guys for a variance.
So I guess I'll just ask a question, Brandy. What's the downfall of spot zoning?
You can, I don't want to speak on behalf of Brandy because she can do a good job of doing that herself. My guess is that you end up with weird uses in the middle of industrial uses. I mean, that's the risk that we run. But if you look at it directly to the east, it's open land. Sure, it's I-1, but it looks like a field. I mean,
It gets bailed.
Yeah, and I would say too, because of the proximity to Highway 81, which is an arterial, it does, I mean, and we do also say in the comp plan that we would see this as redevelopment would be mixed use, commercial and industrial. So it's kind of, you have to start somewhere.
But if we were to make this C3, we got to remember though too, it's not just for the proposed intended use. It's any use that's allowed in the C3 zone, which could be apartments, correct?
Oh, is that by conditional use?
Yeah, it's by conditional use.
Yeah, we just had that one.
Yeah.
So then we would have, you know, the permitted uses, it kind of actually, for the applications that we had for the Board of Adjustment, the contractor shops that were in the C3 district were more I-1 in nature. It's kind of the same situation in this area, but it is zoned I-1. And so now asking to go to C3 for the proposed use of the campground. But that's a good point to make, that it is any permitted use in the C3 district could be utilized, but would it be inappropriate? You know, if the curb and gutter and the paved street were extended, what would be wrong with a clinic or a parking lot or a rec facility, motor vehicle sales, motel, hotel? It really would come down to the best use for the land. Now, a lot of those lots would probably want to be adjacent to the highway instead of set back. So, you know, the use of this property is kind of dictated by that as well.
I believe the public hearing is still open. Anyone else to speak on behalf of or against the resolution? Anyone at all? Anyone in the internet? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further comments, questions from the board?
This is Ford. When I hear the term campground, the intent may be construction workers, but campground equates to families, and families equates to children. Construction workers with an RV do often or can come with a family. I just don't see this as a place where a campground with potential for children is a very good idea.
I don't think that that is a place that they would probably go. I think they're probably going to be exactly what Mr. Stimson is thinking, Diane. I think your families probably are not going to stay there unless it was just an exhausted night and they hook up. But I don't see them, setting up for a week or anything like that in that particular location myself. But is there any way you can, if you give him the zoning, and then if he does not decide to do the campsite, can you do it restrictive only to a campsite, or is that not, you cannot do that? Okay.
No,
You don't have the ability to have a conditional zoning.
Yeah, I was gonna let, I shook my head no, but Matt, if you wanna just verify.
I think we should return to the question at hand. Are we okay with spot zoning this to C3? Are we okay with whatever the permitted and conditional uses that C3 are at this particular location? I mean, that's kind of when it boils down to it. If we need to bring in the other parcel or perhaps even more of it, rezone it, I mean, are we comfortable with that, or should we leave it as I want?
I think if we do consider rezoning it, we should bring the whole parcel in. I would hate to leave off that other parcel with the intent of doing it later when steel prices improve, but if they don't improve for 5 or 10 years, I would hate to have that adjacent to a commercial property for that long of time. So if we do rezone it, I think we should rezone the whole property, and we could, give them 2 years to get the cars out of there or something, but I think it should all happen at once.
Just to bring this up, as I know he does not, these cars could go over here, or like any other property too. So if the intent is to get rid of the cars, I don't know if that would necessarily be accomplishing it.
I guess I don't have the problem with the parking lot. I just have the problem. I just scanned the entire city, and in no industrial zone do we have a pimple of C3 zoning. It's not something we've done in the past. I'm not sure it's the appropriate thing to do. I've professionally been averse to spot zoning my entire professional career, and that's
Yes, as long as I had some type of.
that's where I'm at.
That way I wasn't in a rush to try.
I tend to echo Mr. Kays's concerns here. It looks to me like if we want to do this, we should look at the parcel to the north, to the east, the second to the east, and then that little, what appears to be a sliver one, so we could connect it with a straight face to C3, so, and perhaps even all the way, I don't know, there's a bunch of tanks and stuff.
Brandy, is that in flood zone?
Yes, it is.
100 year or 500?
I think 100 year. Just in talking with Joel, I know that I'm just going to relay this information since the public hearing was closed, but he is fine. He's not going to move these cars. He's fine with getting rid of them as long as if we did want to include this parcel as well, then we would come up with some time frame of when the cars had to go away. So yeah, he is within the 100-year floodplain, and then this is an actual drainage way. It's not a floodway, but there is that's an important part of conveying the drainage to the south from Highway 212. So it does have its difficulties in how it would be developed. So the campground is kind of is a semi-permanent use of the property.
Public hearing is closed. No motion has been made. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve rezoning, the whole lot, with the caveat that the vehicles need to be, removed within 2 years.
Mr. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Case.
The only thing that we can act on is what has been noticed, which is the piece of, the smaller property. Is that correct?
That's what I was gonna ask Matt, that if, because the legal description only included the 150 feet, the west 150 feet. So
Correct.
how do we handle that, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Kays's analysis that you can't act on anything that wasn't noticed.
I rescind my motion and I will make a motion to approve the rezone as requested.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. Oh, it hasn't been seconded yet.
I'll second it for you, Todd.
We motion by Brink, second by Dargis Johnson. Go ahead.
Motion to amend previous motion to allow for the approval. However, if this motion fails and the city council also failed, that the applicant would not be restricted from coming back with a reapplication, wouldn't have to wait the 6 months or whatever.
That has to be specified. And also, I think that would just be, if the application would be changing if he was including a larger area. So I don't know, Matt, does that need to even be amended?
If we don't need to, then I don't, but I just want to make sure that the applicant understands that he doesn't have to wait 6 months or a year to come back with a alternative.
My understanding is there was kind of a common misconception that there was this limit out there, but unless the board puts a specific time limit upon, for which they can't bring an application back,
Okay.
they can.
Okay, thank you. My misunderstanding.
Thanks, Matt.
Motion second. And Mr. Kays, are you withdrawing your amendment then?
I forgot. I am withdrawing my amendment.
Just trying to make things more complicated.
Thank you, Mr. Kays. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think, when we talk about spot zoning, I think it'd be really good if we had a little bit more in our ordinance about what is considered a spot zone. Like Brandy mentioned, we have a 1 acre requirement for the RG, 3 acre for the business park, and another one, I believe, 5 acres for I-2 or something.
PUDs and stuff.
PUDs.
Yep.
It's hard to know exactly what a spot zone is when this lot in question is over an acre. Is that still classified as a spot zone, or is it not? It's just something that it's hard to know what the answer to that is.
Mr.
Right.
Chair, if I could speak to that briefly. Generally speaking, in the administration of zoning regulations, the spot zoning becomes a conflict for municipalities when you've taken a smaller parcel and singled out a specific use for that parcel that's contrastingly different from the surrounding uses. And also, some would contend that it's specifically to benefit that individual parcel owner. Now, with that being said, our zoning ordinance is set up such that we have minimum size requirements for certain zoning districts, and which this meets. So I think that, if we're ever contended on whether this were a spot zoning issue, what would typically be looked at by those investigating that accusation was the comprehensive land use plan followed? Is the zoning that the smaller area was rezoned to somewhat compatible with the surrounding zoning district? Was there any specific intent for personal gain of that individual property owner at the detriment of the surrounding property owners? Just from my experience, those are the things that would be delved into to determine, whether there was a legitimate spot zoning concern. That being said, I couldn't tell you my professional opinion Whether this would be a spot zoning situation, one could contend that it might be, but I could see also where, you know, it may not be considered that based on all circumstances here.
But spot zoning isn't illegal. It's just by practice.
Well, that's where the challenges, legal challenges come into play, where if something were spot zoned and they did find that some of the things I rattled off were met and determined to be true, that's where communities tend to get themselves into trouble with that spot zoning effect.
But is that in ordinance or state statute?
I don't know what the state statutes say to that extent. That's just common planning knowledge that I'm sharing here tonight. And I don't know, Stacy, if you have anything to add to that.
I'm not aware of any particular statutes on this, but I'd probably defer that to the city attorney for further review. It is, I agree with Mr. Vanai. It's sort of on the line of one could argue it would be spot zoning. One could also argue that it would not be by meeting the minimum size requirements. So without a more specific definition in our ordinance, I would lean to saying that it meets the minimum size.
And if not by statute, I think that the challenges would come generally from the practice of zoning that we as a community administer. Are we administering this rezone in a consistent manner that follows our comprehensive land use plan, that follows our zoning ordinances as adopted, so on and so forth, and the common practices that we've administered in the past, and considering those as well. And as long as we're administering those consistently and uniformly and following the plans that we have in place, that's where we tend to, you know, be protected from any accusations of spot zoning.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
We have a motion second. We've had some good discussion. Any other parting comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Attorney.
I just wanted to correct something I said previously. The language about 6 months actually is correct as it relates to Plan Commission, or as it relates to amendments to our zoning ordinance. So I misspoke earlier. The 5 years language I mentioned is only related to variance requests.
But
as it relates to amendments to zoning ordinance language, there is a 6-month period during which that applicant can't come back for the same or substantially the same request.
Yeah, and so then it does say no application for the same or substantially the same amendment. So you would think that this is substantially the same if they were including that east area as well? Matt?
Probably, yeah. I don't have any basis for that. I'm just making a judgment call, but it includes the same land, so yes.
Would the applicant be so inclined to withdraw his request and come back with a different request for the entire parcel?
He said sure if he needs to.
I don't know if you're gathering what's going on here, but you're at risk of losing the motion and then being barred for 6 months to come back and bring a new motion. If you withdraw that, perhaps that it could be considered as a whole and maybe you would have better odds. That's what the discussion is, if you haven't gathered that.
So it would delay you. We could get you on September 10th, Plan Commission. And then it would go to City Council for 2 readings after that. So it would delay you by 1 meeting.
Oh, that's fine. My main goal is to get at least the first portion of it constructed yet this fall. So if it's only gonna hold me off 1 meeting, then absolutely. It's your call if you want to.
It's your call. As the applicant, you can either withdraw it or we'll proceed on the vote.
Let's go ahead and withdraw it for now, and I will resubmit it with the full 2 point answers.
Applicant has withdrawn resolution number 2020-45. We are moving on to agenda item 6E, I believe.
Just be the lot 9 instead of the west 205 feet. Okay, so then what do I need to turn on?
We'll just change that petition. So then,
So we don't need to do anything else except just change it to include the whole thing.
yeah. I'll just call you tomorrow. We'll just get it changed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very
Yep,
much.
thank you. Have a good
Brandy,
night.
would you introduce us item 6E?
Yes, thank you, Liam. So this is commission consideration of resolution number 2020-46, approving the plat of Compesca Dunes third subdivision to the municipality of Watertown in the county of Cottington. So this area, Compesca Dunes, we're familiar with it. We've had it come forward for the preliminary plan approval, the rezone of that southeastern corner. And then also the Board of Adjustment granted the conditional use for storage units, and then also granted, nope, then we reheard it and you took some aesthetic requirements away for the conditional use as conditions. So now they are moving forward with getting this area platted that they hope to develop as the contract, or as the storage units. And I'll pull up the plat here. We've also included the development agreement. So you will see here's the plat that they're proposing. Currently, it is all Lot A of Compesca Dunes second edition subdivision, and then it's Lot 1, Block 2 of Compesca Dunes second subdivision as well, is the existing detention pond. So in the preliminary plan, this detention pond was proposed to be improved in the first phase of the development of the preliminary plan that was approved. So that's why they are including in platting this. They have worked with the landowners of Detention Outlot A, or what the existing pond is, which is DLT Development. And then Paul and Lori Carlson own all of Lot A, which is now shown to be Outlot X and Lot 1. And then Lot 1 is where they plan on developing the storage units. And then in the development agreement, we explain how this pond will be improved, the cattails will be removed, and then the drainage will be conveyed to the pond to alleviate some of the concerns of the wetland area. And then obviously when fill is placed on this lot to be developed, we'll make sure that the water being displaced from there is not causing any drainage issues for adjacent landowners, and will be accommodated through the building permit approval and the construction plans for this pond. Everything is zoned appropriately as well. So Outlot X, Detention Outlot A are R1 single family residential, and then Lot 1 is the R3 multifamily residential that we approved for the storage units. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
And you said this is consistent with the preliminary plat, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
The development lot agreement had language in there about sidewalks being required, or so when Lot 1 of Block 3 gets built, is there going to be sidewalks along both 33rd Street and Golf Course Road?
For that development, we will do a waiver of right to protest because it doesn't connect to anything at this point. And then if there's a rec trail that's proposed on the north side of Golf Course Road, so if that would come through, then they would be susceptible for an assessment for that. But then right now we're asking for the extension of the sidewalk along the detention pond because it's within a residential district. So then it'll be turned over to the city. So we want all of those requirements to be completed before we would take it over. So that if this would all connect and develop, because there's going to be a street here that's shown in the prelim plan. So at this point, there would be no connectivity. So we would just do the waiver of right to protest. And then we have the rec trail on the east side of 33rd Street Northwest.
And to clarify, that waiver could be administered or not, you know, pending the commission's request here in this review of this plat. But the logic that Brandy walked through is where we were looking at it from a staffing standpoint. But if the planning commission had, you know, desires to see that sidewalk installed, these are the things that we would discuss as well at the council level with the plat development agreement approval as they formally approve the development agreement. If the way the sidewalk is identified in that development agreement isn't pleasing to the council, they of course could make amendments to that as well. So I guess what I'm saying is, Commissioner Brink, if you wanted to make a recommendation of sidewalk being included in that development agreement, we can definitely carry that forward to the council level too.
No, I liked what Brandy said. When I read the development agreement, I thought it was saying that they had to put it in now, and it just seemed silly to me because there's all of it around it that doesn't have it. So I was pleased to hear that it would be a development lot agreement.
Understood.
Waiver of right to protest.
That's what I meant.
I know.
Waiver of right to protest.
And it is typical too for our development agreements, when they are platting, the developer can defer it to the property owner. And then at that time, when they would apply for this building permit, is when we would include any of the public infrastructure that hasn't been improved. So that curb and gutter, rec trail, sidewalk, all of that would be included. Not saying that would ever happen, but just so that we're not relieving the city's infrastructure improvements to be completed.
Is there a resolution number, or is this just a?
This is by resolution. This is resolution number 2020-46.
And refresh my memory, on a plat, we do not have a public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. I'll entertain a motion on 2020-46.
I'll make the motion to approve the plat.
Motion by Brink, second by Dargits Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Brandy.
Culhane.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
Dargits Johnson.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Kays.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Everyone's favorite part of the evening, number 7, open public comment. Is there anyone from the public to speak about anything that was not on the agenda today? Anyone in the interwebs that wants to say anything constructive, preferably? Number 8, new business. Any new business?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Could take a brief moment to introduce a new staff member here at the city. It was mentioned, I believe, at our last meeting, or maybe the meeting prior to that. We have a new community development manager with us. Her name is Stacy Bungard, and she joins us with approximately 13 years of planning and zoning administration experience. And she has her bachelor's degree in economics, and also a bachelor's in political science, and also a master's degree in public administration. Stacy most recently worked with the city of Brookings as the city planner for Brookings, and has about a week and a half on the job with us now. I'd also like to briefly describe, the changes we made in staffing within Public Works. We had the Building Services Division and the Engineering Division, which we still do have an Engineering Division, but the urban planner was housed under the city engineer separately or autonomously from the zoning and building function that was housed under the building official. So what we've done is created a community development manager who will now house and oversee planning and zoning, the building services, and code enforcement, all underneath Public Works still. So the whole goal there being to get planning and zoning back together under the same one manager underneath the Public Works Director. And so that's what we've done with that restructuring, and we're greatly looking forward to continuing to get Stacy acclimated with the City of Watertown. our zoning regulations, our subdivision regulations, and working closely with Brandy as the urban planner and the knowledge that Brandy's obtained over the last several years with the city, and plugging that in and continuing to gain efficiencies in our processes and procedures, and help address some of the known issues and concerns that we've heard from developers and contractors over the years. And so building a strong team, and very greatly looking forward to seeing the successes that as we continue to move forward with this new team. So, Stacy, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I just want to thank you, Mr. Vanai, and just very much look forward to working with everyone and learning the community, and just excited about this new opportunity.
Well, welcome very much, and we're excited to work with you too, I think.
Thank you.
You got an easy one tonight. With that, old business,
None that I have.
executive session.
Nope.
I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Dargis Johnson, second by Hanson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.